When I bought my Oculus Rift DK2, it was one of the most exciting purchases I'd ever made. I was smoking the competition in racing sport cars, fulfilling my dream of exploring the galaxy in a galactic FedEx simulator, and most importantly, demoing it in person to friends and family who'd never experienced something like it before. And then 2 weeks passed, and while it stayed plugged into my computer, it collected dust on my desk, then the floor, then the closet. Whether it was a lack of early adopter games, screen technology that needed improvement, or the fact that it wasn't the most comfortable face hugger in the world, the DK2 was exactly that, a development kit. The point is, the Oculus Rift has been the dream of just about every PC gamer out there, and now with the release of the CV1, it's finally here. No more development kits, no more prototypes, no more disclaimers saying, oh, it'll get better before release. So does it live up to the hype? Hey, my name is Dev. We haven't met before because this is the first video that I've ever made on YouTube, but that's alright. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Oculus Rift CV1, Oculus's hat in the VR ring they ignited with a Kickstarter nearly 3 years ago. At $600, Oculus has already put the Rift outside of the range of many gamers. On top of that, if you're going to want to play the best looking games on VR like Elite Dangerous and Project Cars, you're going to need a beefy computer behind it too. Oculus recommends at least a GTX 970 or R9 290 on the GPU side, and an Intel Core i5 4590 on the CPU side, which is crazy high for any game or peripheral. So you need a computer that's going to run you $1,000 starting, a $600 Rift on top, and all new VR-compatible games to go with it. At that point, it's making the Rift seem more like an investment than a product. But you know what? On the Oculus side, the hype just doesn't die with this thing, so it must be pretty damn good. And you know what? It's totally worth it. Alright, so what do you get? First off, the box itself is beautiful. Like, a lot of people take this for granted, but when you spend this much money on a device, it makes it so much better when it looks this good being undressed. Like, seriously, it sounds stupid, but if you've ever owned a pair of Beats or Sennheiser headphones, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Inside the box, we've got the Rift itself, the new positional tracking sensor, a Let's Get Started guide, a few Oculus stickers, a basic remote for navigating Oculus Home and some more basic apps, and even an Xbox One controller with a wireless adapter for Windows 10. Something I assumed anyone with the investment in PC gaming enough to buy the Rift would already have had, but now that it's a consumer retail product, I understand it a little more. Anyways, the Rift and all of its adapters are just gorgeous, and ever since Oculus straight up acquired Carbon Design, the team behind Microsoft's Kinect and Xbox 360 controller, the Rift got sexy. Like, every single bit of this is just pretty. The Rift itself doesn't have the DK1's box glued to your face aesthetic and tops the DK2's awkward straps that you didn't know were awkward until this came out. The head tracking sensor doesn't look like cybernetic webcam anymore. It's an elegant cylinder on a post that looks as pretty as it does from the front as it does from the back. Even the remote is kind of pretty. It doesn't do much, but at least it looks good doing it. And the controller is, well, an Xbox One controller. You love it or you hate it. Personally, I grew up with a GameCube as a kid, so I transitioned to Xbox really well, and for everything that I needed to do, the Xbox One controller does it perfectly. Which is why I'm not sure what the remote is for. It doesn't have a microphone or anything, it's just a D-pad, volume buttons, back, and home. All functions of which are available on the Xbox One controller. You might say it's for the lighter media consumption, but when I'm sitting upright at a desk, the controller is just as easy to grab as I already know its layout by heart. It sounds like a nitpick, but I could have gone without a duplicate remote. But back to the Rift itself. This year's CV1 has plenty of upgrades from last year's DK2, including a higher resolution OLED screen coming in at a resolution of 2160 by 1290 Hz, a solid upgrade from last year's 1080p 75 Hz screen on the DK2. This means that the Rift has much less of that screen door effect that you probably heard about, meaning the pixels are near impossible to see and resemble a blur more than a pixel grid. The increased refresh rate also helps with any motion sickness you might have had with the DK2. And I'm incredibly happy to announce that the fogging issue that plagued the DK2 is mostly gone with the CV1. In its place is a new God Ray effect that happens because of the Fresnel lenses that the CV1 is using, which is distracting on its own, but at least it kind of blends in with the games that you're playing. Like, for example, in Elite Dangerous, a lot of the HUD on your ship seems like it would have a lens bloom anyway, so it doesn't get too bothersome. But enough on-paper specifications. How does it actually feel to use this Rift? In a word, amazing. Like I said, the hype for this thing is off the charts for a damn good reason. There's really nothing quite like playing a game in VR. The Oculus Rift comes with 2 games, Eve Valkyrie, a first-person arena space shooter, And Lucky's Tale, a vivid, colorful platformer with controls and physics created entirely with VR in mind. Let's start with Valkyrie. If you like space, you'll like this, plain and simple. Unreal Engine 4 does an incredible job of rendering particle and lighting effects while maintaining immersive presence the way it's supposed to. It doesn't have the scale of Elite Dangerous, for example, but there's a few things in the cockpit that it does way better. The biggest being that your in-game model actually leans around it with you, as opposed to decapitating yourself and looking at your former body. All in all, it's your average arena space shooter that kicked my ass, and I've been butthurt ever since. Right now, I'm gonna pit it on everyone else having more experience than me, but I'm more than sure there's actual strategy and skill needed to outsmart your opponent. The biggest thing here is that your Rift gives you a gigantic advantage by letting you freely look around the cockpit and track enemy ships, just like you would in real life. Once you start doing this in vehicle-based VR games, it's excruciating to go back to something like middle mouse free looking. The other game of the box is Lucky's Tale, and I have to admit, when I first pre-ordered the Rift, I kinda laughed it off as a childish platformer, especially when it was standing up next to Valkyrie. And in some cases I was right. It's not the best platforming game in the world, but it's surprisingly one of my favorite VR games yet, because it's an absolutely ingenious move from Oculus. This is the game that you can let your kids play and get them excited for a new type of video game. The interaction with Lucky himself, like when you bonk heads with him in the game, just makes the game feel so much more personal and engaging, which is exactly what a kid's game should be. And I almost forgot, there's also Oculus Stream Deck. It's a free game that you can download from the Oculus Store, and basically it's a bunch of different scenes put together that helps you introduce other people that haven't tried virtual reality for to the world of the Oculus Rift. And there's one huge point that I want to make about this, which is why I left it for last. Both Steam VR and Dream Deck demand that you stand up to experience and set them up, regardless of if you're using the Vive or the Rift. Fuck that. I didn't do it. I sat down here in my comfy ass chair and got all that I needed out of Dream Deck. I had a T-Rex scream in my face, leaned in to view a tiny town, and watched two robotic arms fight to the death with rubber duck magic. But you know what? Just yesterday, I stood up. Not even that, I cleared space in my room and turned the sensor around to give me a little playground. And you know what? I was missing out. If and when you get your Oculus Rift, stand up like it says. Sure, there's something to be said for the cockpit simulators like Project Cars and all those space games, and I promise you can go back to those in just a sec. But make sure you and your friends stand up for Dream Deck. Because something happened when I played the submarine scene right here again. I walked around the room, my head bobbed like it would in real life, and I walked up to a meter to read it instead of just leaning in. And for the first time ever, my mind accepted that I was somewhere else. Reviewers and Let's Players will try to sell you on the experience of leaving the world around you to enter the game. Hell, I'm guilty of it myself. I've been doing it for the past God knows how many minutes. But moving around and being freed from your seat really solidified it for me. I leaned over the edge of this tower and felt genuine vertigo. And keep in mind, I don't get motion sick at all when I play Eve or Elite Dangerous. And I didn't get sick playing this. I just felt my knees shake a bit. I tried grasping for a rail that wasn't there, and then my gut told me to step back. It was the only experience that made me feel like it didn't matter that I knew it was fake, and I think that's why Dream Deck exists. It's the ultimate arcade machine style attract mode for VR. Is your girlfriend jealous if there's $629.99 missing from your joint account? Start up Dream Deck and then she'll understand. Are your parents wondering why you want to spend so much money to leave the reality that they blessed you with? Start up Dream Deck and then they'll understand. Are your friends drunk off their ass if it's been a while since your Snap story has gotten you any DMs after? Get your phone out and start up Dream Deck. And it's weird. I bought my Rift because Oculus sold me on the perfect sit-down experience. To me, things like the Vive's room tracking and motion controllers instantly made me think I'd get bored with my Vive after a week or two, like I did with my Wii or Kinect. And because I don't own a Vive, I might still be right. But I just think it's hysterical that the Rift could tease me with the biggest selling point of the competitor, and even after having the Rift for over a week, it satisfied my craving for VR, for now. But I know I'm going to want much more in the future. But like I said, this is my first video. I think comparing the Rift and the Vive in a video where I don't even have the Vive is a little bit beyond my limit right now. So whether or not the Rift is going to lead to me getting a Vive to compare it in the future, we'll let that story be told another time. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like the video if you like it, dislike it if you thought it was terrible, and please let me know what I can do better to make these videos better for you to watch. Again, my first video. I don't know everything that I'm doing just yet. Subscribe if you want to be updated for more videos every time I release them, and thanks for watching, guys. Take care.
I got it. I got it. I got it.